In this video, we're going to look at some cool tips and tricks of Excel and some unusual functionality. First thing we're going to look at is how to select data in a more efficient manner. If you click anywhere in a square block of data like you see on screen, if you press Ctrl and A, you will see that whole block gets selected. If you press Ctrl and A a second time, the whole sheet will get selected. If there's a gap in the data, and you press Ctrl and A, that data will not get selected. So that's the first way of selecting data, with Ctrl and A. The next thing we're going to look at is when you're in the data, to get to any of the sides, if you hold down the Control key and press the down arrow, you'll jump to the bottom, left, top or right. So that's a quick way to get to a very long list of data, to get to the bottom, the left, the right. So this is Control will jump to the end. If you are in a cell and you hold down Control, Shift and arrow, it will jump to the bottom and select the data. Another way to select data, if you select any cell, doesn't matter what sheet you're on, any cell will have this green border around it. If you double click on the border there, it will also jump to the left, right, and the bottom. And again, if you hold down the Shift key while you're double clicking that border, it will also select the data. You can add more to the data by just keeping the Shift key in now and clicking on that side, for instance. It will keep selecting data. The same thing would have happened with the keys, so Control, Shift and down arrow and right arrow would select the same set of data. So that is a few ways to select data and navigate through data on a sheet. The next thing I want to show you is, if you remember in lesson 12 we did auditing of formulas, where you can step through a formula. What you can also do, there's a shortcut key. If you have a formula that's complicated like this one, if you press any part of the formula, that could get an answer. So this first piece of the formula could have an answer. If you now press F9, you will see what Excel does. It replaces that part of the formula with an actual value. So you can see the sum of those few is 1774,400. If you press escape, it will put it back. If you press enter, it will actually permanently replace that part of the formula with a fixed value. But you can, in any part of the formula, press F9 and you'll see the answer for that piece of the formula. Or in this case, if I press the whole thing, press F9. Be careful, I'll do it now. If I press enter, that became a fixed constant number. So Control Z will just put it back. So normally, if you just want to see part of your formula, you can select that part of the formula and press F9 and you'll see an answer for that piece of the formula. Just remember always to press escape to get the formula not to change. This next trick I want to show you have saved me a lot of time shuffling data around. If I have this list now, you can see it's from 1 to 12. Normally, if you want number 8, so row 9, if you want that to be the first item, what you would normally do is something similar to this, maybe slightly different, but you would open that up, select row 9, move it up there, and then you can delete the empty line. So it's something similar what I see most people do. But what you can do in Excel, if I want to put row 10 at the top now, I select the data, hold down the Shift key, and while you're holding down the Shift key, once you get to the border of that selection, that green border, also click the left click button on your mouse and drag it up. You'll see now that I bar appearing there, that little green bar. Careful, if you go sideways, it must be in line. So if you now drag it up, what this will do, it will put row 10 in here and shuffle all the other data down. So if I leave everything now, you'll see it move down. So just to show you again, and also what you can do, I'll move this one down, and then what I'll do next is I'll move, you can do 2 rows as well, and I'll move it into there, and you can see it put those 2 rows in this position and shuffle everything back up. It will also work in columns. If I wanted this column to be the end, I simply select the data and then drag it sideways leave everything, and now that column is at the end rather than its previous position. So that is a very convenient way to quickly move a row or a column of data and not having to reshuffle everything. So something else I want to show you also is the way you can quickly copy data. So if I have a selection, if you go again to the border, press Ctrl this time, you'll see the icon change a little plus, and while it's there on the border, click on the left mouse button and drag that down. Now if you leave your mouse, you'll see I've copied this data, and it can be any sort of data. Again, press Ctrl plus and you'll move it out of there. So that's a quick way of copying sections of data. Unfortunately for this method, you cannot select a row like this, holding Control and select another row and now I want to copy it. It must be a continuous selection. Then you can press Control on that border, click and drag it out. This will also work for items like images and graphs if you have any on your worksheet. In the lesson 13 we looked at pivot tables, but something else I wanted to show you here is how you can use grouping in pivot tables. I'm just going to create a pivot table from this on a separate sheet, and what I'm going to do is just drag the date to the rows and let's set the amount to the values. In the later versions of Excel, this will happen automatically. What you see with a date, on the left hand side it will break it into years, quarters and then the months. You can choose how to change that. If you right click on any of these date items, you can click on group and there you can see the grouping. So currently you saw years, months and quarters. If you don't need any of it, so for instance I take quarters out, click OK, now you'll see years and then the months. It will work on other fields other than dates as well. So what I'll do now is I'll take the amount including tax again, and this time I'm going to drop it into columns. So normally this wouldn't make sense, it will take a while. It will put every separate or every unique number in a separate column. If you now right click on those numbers and click on group, you can say for instance I want this to start at 0 and go up to 1.5 million. And I want groups of 500,000. What this will do, it will automatically give you the grouping. So everything in this group, the totals were between 0 and 500,000, up to 1 million and up to 1.5 million. If you make a grouping, so I'll go back to groups. I know the smallest one was 2,000. But if I say started at 100,000, so now I'm starting at 100,000, but there's items that will fall outside of that lower or upper bounds. If you click OK, you'll see what happens now. It will tell you this from 100 to 600, and here you can see it says the items that's less than 100,000 is all grouped together in this grouping. So this is a very useful feature of pivot tables. In this section I want to show you, again based on pivot tables, how you can separate out groupings of pivot tables. So just to show you again, I'm going to insert this into a pivot table on its own sheet. This time I am in the filter part putting region, then name and an amount. Just change this amount to sum rather than count. So here on top in this drop down you have the 4 regions, and then you can filter according to those regions. So if you now look at the bottom, you'll see I have sheet 5, 7 and 4. If I now in the pivot table under the analyze, here where you see pivot table name, just under that is a drop down with options, and there is a option that states show report filter pages. If you click on that, so if you have multiple items here on the top, you would have to pick one, but now we only have region. I click on OK. What happened now, if you look at the bottom, after sheet 5, it's actually created a separate sheet for each of those options. So there's, you'll see it's also selected. That's east, head office, north and west. So it creates extra sheets and already splits the data out for you. This is where we started. So it actually creates those extra sheets. Just be careful if you pick something with quite a high number of options here, you'll get a lot of different sheets. But it's a quick way of splitting the data into separate sheets based on the selection. These separate sheets, all it did really is make that selection and show the data. You can still go back and show all in any of them. So that's how you can split up a pivot table into its different sheets. What I want to show you next is AUTOSUM. A lot of people will, at the bottom of a total of numbers, in the Home tab, click on AUTOSUM, and it will select the numbers that's most appropriate for that position, and if you press enter it will sum it for you. Or you can do it on a row as well. If you press enter it will select that. What I want to show you, I'm just going to delete those two values. What I want to show you, if you actually select all the data plus one extra column and one extra row and then press AUTOSUM, it will AUTOSUM every row and every column in one go. I'm just going to mark this in bold so you can see it clearly, but those are all totals now. Just to show you again, you don't have to also select everything like I did. You can select a few and just go one down, select AUTOSUM, and it will create the sums there. If you need some space between the numbers and where you want your totals, just go, for instance, say 2 columns and 2 rows further, and now if you click on AUTOSUM you will see those answers get put into the furthest regions of your selection. So this is a quick way to get multiple columns adding up and rows adding up. So select everything, one extra column and row, and click on AUTOSUM. What I want to show you now relates to lesson 21 where we spoke about filtering data. So normally if you want to filter data, you would come into this. If you have a list of data, you'll come into the data tab, click on filter, and then start filtering your data the way you want to see it. What I also showed you in that video, what you could do is you could right click, say on West, click on filter and say selected value, filter by selected cells value, click OK, and automatically will put in the filter and filter the data for you. So I'm going to switch off the filter now. What I want to show you now is a quicker way to handle data. If you here on top, you have what's called a quick access toolbar. So this is normally where you see save, undo and redo. If you click on there and click on more commands, what I do here, I click on all commands again, and now what I'm going to look for is auto filter. There you see auto filter. I'm going to add it, and also I'm going to look for clear. There you see clear all filters. So I've added these two buttons and I click OK. So why did I do this? Normally if you work in Excel you would be in the Home tab. What you can do now, if I want to quickly say show me all head office, I click on head office and simply click on that filter button on top and it will filter data for you. If you want to clear it again, you just click on the other button, or I can say show me Tuesday and you click on that filter, and then show me only East, you click again on the filter. So it's a much more efficient way of navigating through auto filter data, and just click on that X there and it will clear the filters. What I also want to show you now, and this only works if you have this button on top. What you can do, for instance, at the bottom of the totals, I can say only show me amounts that's bigger than 1.2 million. So you write your condition like that, click on it, and then click on the auto filter, and now you'll see this filtered list is everything is more than 1.2 million. It does work for text as well. I can say show me every name that starts with a F, so F, and you put your wildcard, the star, click on that auto filter button, and you'll see there's the two names that start with an F. So this is a much more powerful way of using auto filter than before. Also what can happen here, if I auto filter something first, so let's say on East, so now this is the total for East, or the data for East. If I took a total now after it's been filtered and I use AUTOSUM as I showed you in the previous section, you will see something happening now. So this data here is not the normal sum function, it's a subtotal function. So I'm going to just clear this filter. So if you remember in lesson 20 when we looked at the subtotal function, this will automatically put a subtotal function for you at the bottom. So what that means is with the subtotal function there, if I click on Sunday, you'll see the total change. So if I clear it and put it on East again, you'll see the number has changed. If I make it Tuesday, you'll see that the number will become smaller again. And that's all by using this top two new buttons I put in my quick access toolbar. In lesson 15, I showed you how to use with text functions, and in that example we had a way of, say we had a name and surname like here, how to split them manually. From Excel 2013 onwards, there's a concept of flash fill. So the way flash fill works, you need to be in a column right next to your data, and all you do is simply type what you want to happen on the first item. So if I only want to see the name, I type the name John, go back to John, and now in your home tab you'll see under fill there's an option called flash fill. If I click on flash fill, Excel will do what it thinks you need to have happened, and you'll see it is quite accurate most of the time. So if I want a surname this time, click on Smith, click on it again, click on fill, flash fill, and you'll see it will get a surname. So it will attempt at creating something for you. You can also do the opposite. So now if I want to combine this data again, but this time I also want the surname to be in lowercase. So now I have created a name and surname with the surname in lowercase. If I click on flash fill again, you'll see all this worked quite well. But it doesn't always work. What I want to show you now is what if I want to say John Smith or John 1 Smith. If I drag this down now for flash fill, it will put a number 1 in between every name and surname. But what if I wanted to count that number up? So the first one will be 1 and the next one will be 2. In cases like this, you will see if you click on flash fill, it will just tell you that it tried to do the flash fill but it couldn't come up with a pattern. So it works most of the time, and it is a very efficient way, especially with data, to add or combine them looking at the data next to it. The formulas are much more powerful, but this is also a very quick way of dealing with the data. Excel has got a functionality. If I click on any cell and perform an action on it, so I'm going to highlight this in yellow. If you click on any other cell and you press the F4 key, it will always repeat the previous action that Excel did. So you see now everywhere I click on F4, it will highlight in yellow. But this only works for the last action. So let me just undo this again. If you click on this cell, if I make it bold and then highlight it, if I go to another cell and press F4, it will only highlight it. It doesn't make it bold. So highlight was the last action, and that's what gets repeated. Showing you like this, it might not seem that useful, but if you have a long list of data and you're doing something over and over and over, remembering that F4 will give you a repeat action can save you a lot of time. In Excel, there is this concept of tables. So if you have a set of data like this, you could do your normal VLOOKUPs, pivot tables, all this kind of formula on the data. But when your data grows, you'll have to either use a named range which you have to change, or you have to change your formula. There's a third option which is called tables in Excel. That's not to be confused with just a square block of data. That is obviously a table, yes, but there's also a concept. If you click on insert, you'll see there's an option for pivot table and for table. You can either press there or press Ctrl and T. What will happen if I press there, you'll see it will select the data, and if you have headers, it's always better to have headers. It will just mark it there, and if you click OK. First thing you'll obviously notice is a different formatting. Also now, if you look on top, you'll see columns A, B, C. As soon as those headings go above that, you will see what happens with those A, B, C. It actually becomes the words of the heading. So you can always see your heading on top if you scroll through a data list. Also, if you go to the bottom of a list, if you add new data at the bottom of this list and press enter, it will automatically extend that table. So you won't have to write any formulas or change anything there. So I can just write my new data in here, and it will automatically become part of the formula. If you don't want something to be part of the table, you'll see a little handle in the corner here. You simply just drag it up, and now the table stops there, and this line here is not part of the table. Another useful function or property of a table is the formulas you have. If I put here, let's say, commission, you'll see automatically the table will extend, but you'll also notice something about the formula. If I say the commission is, let's say, the amount excluding tax, look at the formula now, it doesn't actually have a cell value. And if I say that is times a 5%, so it's 0.05, if you press enter, two things will happen. You'll also get your formula answer, but you'll also see it will automatically calculate everything else in this row. And if you add new data at the bottom, so if you go to the bottom of this list, if I put in new data here, press enter, it will automatically calculate the formulas for you. You'll see every table. Once you click inside the table, there's a menu that appears here called table design, and here you'll have a name table 1. You can call this anything that's more suitable. I'll just for now call this data. If you have your table like this and you want to look up something, so let's say I want to see, I'll give you an ID number and I want to say the region, for instance. So if I put the ID number here and I write my VLOOKUP, the lookup value is obviously 14. And now the table, if you click on inside the table, you'll see there's a black arrow, and if the black arrow is at an angle, a 45-degree angle, it will select the whole table. So I just click on that, and if you look in the formula now, you'll see it actually got the word data, which is the name we gave to the table. If I press on comma, and there you get your answer. But this is now very efficient for VLOOKUPs, pivot tables, because this is similar to a named range, but this named range, or this range, this table, will automatically increase as you just put new data at the bottom. And all your drop downs for data validation, pivot tables, all those things will just keep working. In this section I want to show you hide and show. So most people hopefully will know, if you click on a column, if you right click, you can hide, and if you have a row, you can hide that as well. If you look on top, normally you'll see the border there is slightly different. If you click either side of it, you can unhide, or you can unhide over here. This is what most people know. What I want to show you is two things. First of all, if you have data here and you hide column A, now before I could select either side of that column and select the data, but now I can't do that because I don't have something to select. To do that, what you can do is in the name cell, you can put in column A, so just the letter A, and say up to any other letter. Let's make it C, and press enter. So A to C is now selected, although you can't see A, and now you can right click and unhide, and column A will reappear. What you can also do is hide a cell. So the way you do that, you select the cell you want to hide. On the home tab here in the formatting section, if you click on this drop down here, you'll get the format cell option. If you go to custom, and under the type, you type in 3 semicolons and click OK. Now, although you can see in the value there's a cell with a value called cell, but you don't visually see it. So that's the way you can hide a visual cell. Just be careful if you use this, because you might not actually find your own data again. To get it back, you just simply click on the drop down here and make a general again, and you can see the data. Also, what you can do, if I right click on sheet 17 here at the bottom and click on hide, I've now hidden the whole sheet. The way you get it back is just right click again, unhide, and you'll see a list of your sheets. So there's sheet 17, and you can unhide it. A functionality that not many people are aware of, there is also a function called very hidden. What that means is, on this sheet, press Alt F11, that will open the code editor. So we were working on the left hand side here on code on sheet 17. If you look at the bottom, currently visible is set to visible. You can either make it hidden or very hidden. So if you click on very hidden, that's all you need to do is simply select very hidden here and then close the editor. Now you'll see sheet 17 is hidden, but if you right click, you cannot unhide it. So this is a little bit more secure than just hiding a sheet, because somebody will have to know that there's something to unhide to actually unhide it. And to unhide it, you have to press Alt F11 again. Select your sheet that you selected before. There you can see 17 is currently very hidden. I just change it back to visible and I close here on top, and there's sheet 17 again. The last two things I want to show you is if you have a long list of information like here and you want to see the top and the bottom of the list at the same time, there's two options available to you. The first one is if you click on View, there's a button here in the window tab called Split. If you click on Split, you'll see this happening to your sheet, and now you can move this gray bars around to where you want the screen to split. If you don't want it split in 4, you simply double click on this bar and now it's just split on top and bottom. And now if you scroll on bottom, the top will stay static, and the top doesn't have to be right on top. You can also scroll this slightly down, so you can see two different areas of the same spreadsheet. If you don't want to see it at all, you can either click on split again, or you can just double click this gray bar and you'll see one continuous list. In the older versions of Excel, just above the scroll bar, if you double click there or the scroll bar at the bottom here, it would have automatically put in those split bars for you. In Office 365 it's no longer an option, but you can always just click on split here. Another way I want to show you, and it's more useful, is let's suppose I want to look at sheet 19 and sheet 18 at the same time. What you can do is click on any window or any worksheet. Again, on the view, you can click on new window, and now you'll see on top it says workbook 1-1. So there's now two of the same windows. Then you can click on arrange all, click on vertical and click OK, and you'll see the two worksheets. Currently now I'm looking at the same workbook, just in two different windows. Now if I click on the last sheet here, 19, so now I can see sheet 18 and 19 at the same time. And if you look on top, it's the same workbook. One is just got the number 2 and one's got the number 1, and that's how you can see two different sheets of the same workbook at once. Hi, this is Anton from the Data Developer channel. If you've liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up below and subscribing to the channel, and thank you for watching.